What's up, everybody? My name's Kyle with Arts Records and Tapes, and this is the summer vinyl tag. I was going to use next year's vinyl tag to introduce myself and the channel, but saw over the weekend that Dylan at Noble Records had posted his summer vinyl tag, so I thought, what better time? I just started the channel, and I thought this would be a great way to show off some of my records and tell a few stories and get acquainted with the YouTube vinyl community. I have been collecting records for over a decade now. I used to work in the music industry, and now I'm a stay-at-home dad. And over the past year or so, in just looking for something outside of parenting, which if you have little kids, you know it can be all-consuming. I just really dove deep into records and found the vinyl community on YouTube and have been watching a lot of the videos and learning a lot about how to properly clean records and store records and upgrading my turntable and all of that good stuff. I had a pretty sizable collection before all this. This has all come in the last year or so. Been buying collections. I sell some too online and such like that, and at shows every once in a while. It's been really fun. It's a great hobby, and it's something that I can do with my kids, which is really great. We listen to tons of records, and it keeps my mind busy. Because watching little kids is great, but also can be very mundane and monotonous. So it's been awesome, and I've been meaning to start a channel for a while, just in going on these adventures as I have been these past years, buying collections, and so I thought I'd start a channel, and I've got a few other videos in the works, like I said, so I'm excited about those. But yeah, let's without further ado, let's dive into the summer vinyl tag 2024. And if you're not familiar with the vinyl tag, the vinyl community here on YouTube, if you search summer vinyl tag, you'll likely see Dylan's video and a few others. Hopefully more people respond as the weeks go on here. But typically the vinyl community will post it at the beginning of each year to reflect on the past year and what they've added to their collection and such. It's a list of 20 questions, gives you a chance to, like I said, tell stories, get to know other people in the community, show off your collection, all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's dive into it. We've got 20 questions here, and question number 1 is an album or song with summer in the name. So my record for this one is the latest from Vinyl Me Please, the Essentials subscription, which I just got in the mail at the beginning of the month. It's Joni Mitchell's The Hissing of Summer Lawns. I was not familiar with this Joni Mitchell record. I love Blue, Court and Spark, but I had never listened to this one, and it is great. Apple Music has it as one of her essential records, and I understand why after giving it a spin. Especially the last song, Shadows and Light. Fantastic. You know, Joni Mitchell I feel like she was always ahead of her time lyrically, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but using the studio as an instrument and really like being at the forefront of technology. And that last song, Shadows and Light, really reflects that. It's gorgeous, amazing lyrics, and just like interesting instrumentation and things going on. So if you haven't checked this one out, please do. The second question is your latest heavy pull. And what this means is a record that you've been wanting for a really long time, that you may have had to pony up some cash for, that you added and you're stoked about it. So my record for this one is Buckingham Nicks. I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan, I'm relatively new to Fleetwood Mac. I've always known the Essentials, Rumors, the self-titled record, but I've in the past year more dove into their back catalog and just their history overall. Amazing band. They've been around for so long, have gone through so many iterations. And so getting this record the pre-Fleetwood Mac Buckingham mix was pretty fantastic, especially because it's not on streaming. You can listen to it here on YouTube, but to hold this in my hand and see it in the record store and to pay money for it and take it home and all that was pretty great. It's not a gatefold, and it is a reissue, but nonetheless, fantastic. I got it in Milwaukee at this amazing record store called Musical Memories. Fantastic place. It is stocked to the gills. You have to move crates off of the records in order to flip through them. So much stuff, and everything was like really reasonably priced. So it was great to find this one. All right, number 3 is Whack-A-Mole. You pick a record at random and you talk about it. So let's do that without looking here. Oh, cool. This one's called Ghost Trees. I actually got this on a Whatnot show that Dylan at Noble Records was doing. He didn't know all that much about it, knew it was free jazz. Was selling it. I took a gamble and got it for a good deal, and it's actually really great. It is definitely free jazz. Saxophone and drums, if I recall. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, saxophone, tenor sax, and drums. And the players are Brent Bagwell and Seth Nana. Modern free jazz, really cool stuff. It's called Ghost Trees, and the record is The Fascination. And I remember I bought it in February, and this album art is just fantastic. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so we get a lot of snow, and the landscape of the city looks very much like this in February. And I was listening to it at that time, and it was just really captured where I was at in life. So great record. A tough listen. It is free jazz, but I'm into that kind of stuff, so I was happy to get this. All right, number 4, an album with an animal on the cover. So for this one, I think it works. Khruangbin, Con Todo El Mundo. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too much. This is the band's second record, but their breakthrough record. And look, it's got little cows on it right there, so that counts, right? 3-piece band. I mean, they're huge now, so if you don't know who Khruangbin are, where you been? Fantastic. I remember hearing this for the first time in 2018 when it came out and just thinking like, whoa, I haven't heard instrumental music that has grabbed me this much in a long time. And it's true. Guitar, bass, and drums, pretty simple stuff. The bass playing on this record and all of their records is fantastic. So is the drumming and the guitar playing. But it was crazy. I was listening to Sound Exploder, the podcast, the NPR podcast. No, not NPR. Sound Exploder, where they dissect the recording process of a particular song, the artists do. And they dissected one of the songs for the record that came after this. And in there they talk about how the drummer and the guitar player have been playing together for years, like in church and stuff. And then the bass player, I think they knew her, but she basically learned how to play bass for this band. And the bass in most of these songs is what stands out and carries them. It's incredible that she had just learned how to play bass. Fantastic. But yeah, mostly instrumental, some singing here and there, but great music. Number 5, an album with a great story. So for this one, I picked an album that came out in 2020. It's Mia Gargett's Mia Gargett. It's just her name with the first letters reversed, switched around. Fantastic record on this blue splatter vinyl. I've gotten very into ambient instrumental music, especially as I've gotten older. I used to do this thing when I had more time in my life of every Friday going on Apple Music and checking out all the new releases in most of the genres that I enjoyed and downloading what seemed interesting. So that's how I found this record. Didn't know this artist before that. Stumbled across it, like the cover, saw that it was ambient, at least labeled as ambient, and gave it a shot, and it blew me away. It came out in the midst of the crazy summer we had here in Minneapolis in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd and everything that happened around that, which was just a mile. The third precinct is just a mile that way as the crow flies. And so it was a pretty crazy time here in our neighborhood and in the city, and with COVID and everything. So this record was a nice breath of fresh air. But not only that, the other story, when I heard this record, it was the first time in a long time that I thought I was inspired to make music again. I was a musician a long time ago when I was a teenager, played in bands all throughout high school and into college, and then started managing bands and running a record label, and worked in the music industry for a long time. So I hadn't played my own music or made my own music in quite a while. And when I heard this, it was in the midst of the pandemic when a lot of people were questioning their lives and making changes and transitions, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or what I was doing next. And my wife and I were about to have a kid, and things were in flux. And I heard this, and it was kind of percolating in the back of my mind that I wanted to make music again, and this was like the catalyst that made it happen. I had always wanted to make an ambient-ish record, and that's what this is. It's ambient, it's instrumental, it's beautiful. The last song does have lyrics, and she's an amazing songwriter, an amazing singer. I believe we actually share a birthday, November birthday, in the same year too, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so this inspired me to make my own ambient record, along with plenty of other music. But if you want to check out my music, I make it as Overread, and I will put a link in the video description if you'd like to check it out. But that's the story behind this record, and you should listen to this if you haven't. And she just signed to Jaguar and released another solo, it's not entirely solo piano, but mostly piano record. She's an amazing composer, really great as well. That one's called Romantic Piano. So Gia Margaret, Mia Gargett. All right, number 6. An album that we'd be surprised to see in your collection. Since none of you know who I am, that doesn't really apply, but I thought about it, and I'll show this one anyway. It's Encanto, the Target exclusive, limited edition on green vinyl. Good movie. Like I said earlier, I have little kids, so I bought this to listen to with them. And it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, the composer who wrote and starred in Hamilton. I really like his music and the way he writes. You always know it's him with the way he does the rounds and the vocal arrangements. They're just really beautiful. And there's some really cool songs on this record. So number 7 is Cheap Heat, which is a great record that doesn't cost very much. So for this one, I chose Phil Manzanera, Primitive Guitars. I knew nothing about Phil Manzanera before I got this record. My mom used to do this thing where she would buy a bunch of records at a garage sale or an auction house and bring them to me whenever she came to visit, and I loved it. It was a really great way to discover new music, and I found some really, really great records that way, and this was one of them. This one came out in '86, I believe. Phil Manzanera is the guitar player from Roxy Music, runs in the same circles as Brian Eno, who was also in Roxy Music. Fantastic guitar player. This is an instrumental record, and it came out in the '80s, like I said, and you can tell the instrumentation and the sound. It sounds very 80s, but it's not cheesy. There are some cheesy sounds, but somehow he makes them sound cool. And it's just a great record, front to back. Oh yeah, and this is the Canadian pressing, and I didn't know it was it's a half-speed master, which I found out when I looked it up on Discogs, and it does sound great, so that makes sense. And you can get this record for $5, even this version, the special edition half-speed master. Great record. I've got a few of his other ones up here too. Number 8, a 45 or alternate format. I don't collect 45s. I think that's pretty common. I do have some that I've gotten in collections and such, but I'm not much of a 7-inch or 45 collector. But I do have one to show, and that is an ode to where I am in Minneapolis, and that's Prince and the Revolution, Let's Go Crazy, and Erotic City, B-side, with an old Target price sticker on there, which I find cute, being in Minneapolis. Target's based here, Dayton's, which then became Target. So yeah, pretty cool to find that out in the wild. Prince. Number 9, your favorite music, documentary, or biopic. For this one, I actually have a copy of it, my old DVD copy, and it's Spend an Evening with Saddle Creek. Great film about the Saddle Creek label, based in Omaha, Nebraska. If you don't know Saddle Creek, it's Bright Eyes and Cursive and The Faint. This movie came out in 2005, and honestly, it changed the trajectory of my life, which is crazy to say, but it really did. I remember walking to the grocery store by my parents' house, sophomore in high school. I was playing in bands and such, and just really, I knew that I wanted to be a musician and play music for the rest of my life, or be involved in music in some way. And I opened a copy of Spin magazine, and there was a giant picture of Conor Oberst from Bright Eyes, and flipped through it, and there was a big spread, I remember, of all of the bands in Saddle Creek in a local auditorium, and the article was all about the label and all the success they were having, and this is the early aughts. And then this came out like, I don't know, a year later, and all of my friends, my bandmates and I, just loved all of those bands. And I remember we all watched this and we're just like, man, we should do that. And so we did. Well, we tried, at least. Started bands and started a label and played gigs and signed our friends and released their records. It's a story for another time, but it was all inspired by this label and other scenes around the country, but mostly Saddle Creek and those bands. Fantastic documentary. Saddle Creek's still doing stuff. They're not the collective of friends that they were, but they've got some great artists signed to the label now. Big Thief was on that label for a long time, for their first 2 records. Tom Berlin, Spirit of the Beehive, great stuff. But yeah, the early aughts, Saddle Creek, amazing. And it's just like the fact that a bunch of kids got together and did what they did it's pretty magical. So check this one out if you haven't seen it. All right, number 10, show a box set. Like 45s, I don't have, I'm not really a collector of box sets. I've never really gotten into them. I probably will at some point. So I don't have one to show, but I do have Childish Gambino, Awaken My Love, which comes in a box, at least the special edition does. It's got the records, 45 RPM, and then I believe it came with a big booklet, and I'm not going to open it, and like these like 3D glasses, or like virtual reality glasses that you could like put your phone in and have virtual experience. I actually got this well after it came out, so I haven't even opened the glasses, but man, what a cover, right? Fabulous record. And I just heard that Donald Glover, the actor and performer behind Childish Gambino, is retiring the project after this record that just came out, which I haven't listened to yet. Hopefully he goes on and does stuff under his own name, because I'm a big fan. This was his pivot from hip-hop to more like funk, soul, jazz, funk and soul mostly, and it is fantastic. Number 11, the most trashed record in your collection. For this one, I picked Bo Diddley, self-titled Bo Diddley. I did clean it. I've got it in a MoFi sleeve, even though it is trashed. You can see like the cover's got some water stains, and but man, like to find this actually was it belonged to Jim Henson too, by the way. Yeah, you know, totally seam split. The spine's not too bad. And the record is just torched. It's got some skips and it's the whole way through. Some say it is the first rock and roll record. This record was likely partied with quite a bit. But yeah, to find this record in a collection was pretty fantastic. I'm actually doing a video on the collection that this came in. It was a free collection, and the most records I had ever gotten, all for free. You'd imagine, like, watch the video. Stay tuned for that. There were 2 copies of this in there. I gave another one to a buddy. Same situation. The other one was torched too. But yeah, so I kept one for myself. It's cool. I mean, this record came out in the 50s. Any record that comes out in the 50s for me is just like, I either got to keep it or listen to it and then get rid of it. But the fact that it is now 70 plus years old, like, that is crazy to me, that you can still hold it and put it on a turntable and it plays music. And that's just, for me, that's the magic of vinyl right there. And, you know, this to be hailed as one of the first rock and roll records is pretty cool. I'd love to get an upgrade copy of this one. Number 12, a local album. So for this one, I picked one of my favorite bands, a band from Minneapolis here called Halloween, Alaska. And this is their self-titled record, Halloween, Alaska. It came out originally in 2003 and was reissued on vinyl last year, 20 years later, by the band. Fantastic band, way ahead of their time. Never got the credit they deserved. What more can I say? This is one of my top 3 records of all time. Incredible. If you haven't heard it, check it out. And the vinyl sounds great. They had it remastered. What more can I say? They've got a Springsteen cover on here, State Trooper. It's fantastic. It is, man, what can I say? If you strip down all of the songs to voice and guitar, they would still be amazing. Amazing songwriting. And it was 2003, so it was like, the Postal Service were big at the time. You know, it was like I don't want to say the beginning of like electropop, definitely not. But it was like of that vein. They had 2 of the songs were in the OC randomly. But my friends and I would cruise around and burn incense in our cars and listen to this record. It's also still to this day amongst those friends, like the perfect record to put on the day after Halloween. Hence the name, but also it's just like that, the music just fits with, especially in the Midwest around here when the leaves are pretty much all changed and things are getting darker, and it's just perfect. So that's Halloween, Alaska. Halloween, Alaska, local band from Minneapolis. They're still doing things. They released their last record in 2018. I actually had the opportunity to work with them, which I'll get to a little bit later. on one of their records. So fantastic band. This is their first record, self-titled Halloween, Alaska. Check it out. Number 13, an album from a faraway land. For this one, this was hard. I don't have a lot of records from outside of Europe and the United States. I need to get some more, definitely. But I chose a Japanese record, Ryuichi Sakamoto, Async. Fantastic record. He actually just passed away last year. I released a beautiful record right before he passed away of cancer, I believe. This record was the precursor to that record, I think. Film composer, some would call it neoclassical, classical crossover, ambient. Just really beautiful instrumental, experimental music. So that's Ryuichi Sakamoto, Async. Number 14, a soundtrack. For this one, I picked not a movie soundtrack, but a video game soundtrack. This is Japanese Breakfast and the soundtrack to a video game called Sable, which I have never played and I'm not familiar with, but am familiar with Japanese Breakfast and the music she makes. Singer-songwriter, indie rocker, I guess you'd say. And this record it does feature her voice, but it's like instrumental, ambient, really cool stuff. One of the records purple and I believe the other one's orange. Yep, right there. Fabulous record. Highly recommended. I bet the game's pretty cool too. And that's Japanese Breakfast, Sable. Number 15, your highest recommendation. And this one can be your highest recommendation of all time, which for me would probably be Halloween, Alaska's Halloween, Alaska, the record I showed before, the local record I showed before. But instead I went with the last record that I really got into. The last 2 years or so, I haven't really caught up on new music. Just been so busy and really focused on discovering a lot of older music with a lot of the collections and such I've been buying. But this record, Alex G, God Save the Animals, is the last new contemporary record that I really got into, and goddamn, is it good. I had never really listened to Alex G before this record. I had heard about him, knew that he played on Frank Ocean's Blonde, and knew that he was like a cool guitar player. But man, when I heard this record, he is, yes, a good guitar player, but also a fantastic songwriter and producer. Like some of the studio, just the in the box studio stuff he pulls off on this record is fantastic. Like really creates an amazing sound palette, and like is really like on the forefront of experimenting. It's great. Fantastic record. Alex G, God Save the Animals. Number 16, highest record on your want list. This one was tough, but I picked the Blue Nile and their record Hats. I have another Blue Nile record I guess I should have shown, but I'll just put the cover of that record right here. Fantastic record, and was actually a big influence for the local record band I talked about earlier, Halloween, Alaska. That's how I heard about the record, from that band. Just like in the similar vein of Talk Talk, just very like 80s, somewhat avant-garde pop, experimental, like very chill, but also like great songwriting, great vocals, very like anthemic, is that a word? Some of the songs are just, you could hear them being played in arenas, just like big and orchestral. Great record. And that one in particular, it's on A&M. It's somewhat hard to find, somewhat expensive. I would love to just find it in the wild. A first pressing. I'm sure it's been reissued, but I'm sure I'll find it at some point. Number 17, a channel shout out. So another VC, Vinyl Community YouTube channel. The one I'm going to shout out is Mountain Man Picker. I really like his videos. In addition to the vinyl community videos, I've also been watching a lot of reselling content. There's a lot out there, and I do a little bit of it myself, not the content, but the reselling part. And I like this channel because it's reselling records, and he's a collector himself, but also sells and takes you around to garage sales, estate sales, record shows, and record stores. And a lot of it's just like POV flipping, which I really like, especially when I can't go out digging myself. It's fun to tune in and see what he finds. So, Mountain Man Picker. Number 18 is a silver lining in vinyl. Dylan put this question on here because he's been seeing a lot of negativity in the vinyl community. I haven't seen much of that. He's talked about it a little on his channel. Maybe I'm just not watching the right channels. I like to keep things positive, and Dylan's really good at that too. So my silver lining would have to be just the overall vinyl community on YouTube. Like I said, I have really gotten into the hobby over the past year, and just discovering all of the knowledge and insight on YouTube through everyone's channels and the VC has just been fantastic for me. And it's just been great. Like I mentioned, watching flip videos when I can't go out and dig, like learning how to change out my stylus properly or clean records properly and all the different ways you can do it, how to store them and how to buy collections. Like it's just been a wealth of knowledge that I didn't know was out there until I just started searching. And it's been great. Yeah, and like I'd mentioned before, I'm a full-time dad, and that can get a little isolating. You're just so busy with the kids, and I wanted to create this channel to introduce myself and this hobby that I really love, but also hopefully make some friends along the way. That'd be great. So if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and like and leave a comment. Love to hear from you. Love to get to know some folks out there. So yeah, my silver lining is the vinyl community on YouTube. Number 19 is A Steal of a Deal, a record that you got a great deal on. And I'm going to pick classic, The Velvet Underground and Nico. There's a big old banana. And notice it's not a peel. This is a reissue. 70... I can't remember the year it was reissued. It's a gatefold. Torso's blocked out, of course. Yeah, gatefold. And the record itself is in mint condition. I bought a collection about a year ago that had a peel, and it was completely peeled. I cleaned the record. The record itself was I'd say is VG. It had been played a lot. Not a lot of scratches, but there's some crackle, some consistent crackle in a lot of the tracks. And so I wanted to get an upgrade copy, and I randomly came across this at a store in Minneapolis here, and it was $30, which I was surprised by, just given, like, I knew it was a reissue when I saw it, but this particular reissue, it's UK, sells for much more than that. So, and it's a better copy, plays better, sounds great. So yeah, that's my steal of a deal. And finally, number 20, a promo. So I have been collecting records for over a decade. A lot of my initial collecting was new records, a lot of contemporary music, not a lot of older stuff, not a lot of used records. And the promos in contemporary music aren't as much of a thing. I feel like aren't as much of a thing as they were back when records were king. Back when records were the only format. Records are king again, which is pretty cool, at least in terms of sales. Yeah, now, like, you just get a digital advance, right? People aren't pressing promo records. So I don't have a lot. The only promo, white label promo I have is like a classical record. And I did not want to end this video showing a classical record. I love classical music, but that wouldn't be a great way to end this video. So I'm going to show another record that gives me an excuse to talk about one of my favorite bands again, Halloween Alaska. This is a test pressing of Halloween Alaska's third record, which I have right here, called All Night the Calls Came In. I actually released this record on my label back in 2011. That's the logo there. It was called Ambledown. I had the honor of working with the band. They were my favorite band at the time and still are. One of my favorite bands, I guess you'd say. And this is the test pressing that we approved right away. It came back sounding great. And, you could say it's white label. It's All Night the Calls Came In by Halloween Alaska. And that's it, my summer vinyl tag for 2024. I want to thank Dylan at Noble Records for starting the tag. If you like this video, hit subscribe, give me a like, leave a comment. I'd love to meet some of you guys. Like I said, I've got a lot more videos in the works, and hope to just keep this going and recommend new music and bring some new content and show all the cool stuff, all the cool collections I've been buying and all that. So stay tuned, and thanks again.